The air is thick with incense, the scent of centuries pressing down on forgotten manuscripts. Somewhere in the vaults beneath Rome, hidden behind layers of stone and secrecy, lie texts that were never meant to be seen again. Not because they were heretical, not because they were false, but because they were too powerful. These were not ordinary prayers. They were living incantations, words that didn't just ask for divine intervention, but commanded it. Whispers that didn't just reach heaven, but shook its gates. And that was the problem. For nearly 2,000 years, the Church has stood as the bridge between man and God. But what happens when someone discovers a back door? A direct line to the sacred, one that doesn't require permission, penance, or a priest? History shows us the answer. It gets silenced. Some say these lost prayers were fragments of an older faith, remnants of the mystery schools that thrived before orthodoxy hardened into dogma. Others believe they were divine gifts, given to saints and seers who wielded them with terrifying effect, healing the incurable, summoning storms, even stopping death itself. And when the Vatican caught wind of them, they were declared forbidden, not lost, not forgotten, erased. But words have a way of surviving. In the margins of apocryphal gospels, in the oral traditions of desert mystics, in the coded symbols of alchemists, echoes remain. And tonight, we follow those echoes back to the source. This is the story of the prayers they didn't want you to know, the ones that could have changed everything. The question is, are you ready to hear them? The story begins long before the Vatican, before the cross was ever raised over Rome. These prayers did not originate in the hushed halls of monasteries. They were born in the desert winds, in the caves of hermits, in the secret gatherings of those who sought God without intermediaries. Some trace them back to the Essenes, the mystical Jewish sect, said to have guarded sacred knowledge lost to mainstream religion. Others whisper of even older origins, fragments carried from Egypt's mystery schools, from the Zoroastrian fire temples, from the first shamans who spoke to the divine as one speaks to a friend. These were not mere recitations. They were technologies of the soul, precise and potent. By the time early Christianity emerged, certain saints and mystics were said to wield these prayers with miraculous effect. The Desert Fathers, those radical ascetics who fled civilization to meet God in the wilderness, reportedly used invocations that could bend reality, summoning food in times of famine, healing wounds with a touch, even glimpsing into the future. But as the Church grew in power, such unmediated access to the divine became inconvenient. A rift formed between the mystics and the institution. Theologians like Origen spoke of apokatastasis, the ultimate restoration of all souls to God, while others, like the Gnostics, claimed direct knowledge of the divine spark within. These ideas were too dangerous. If every person could reach heaven without the Church, what need was there for popes, for sacraments, for the entire hierarchy of salvation? By the Middle Ages, the Church began systematically purging texts that contained these prayers. The Council of Nicaea, the burning of the Library of Alexandria, the suppression of the Cathars, each was a step in silencing the old ways. The most controversial prayers were locked away, labeled as heresy or destroyed outright. Yet fragments survived, smuggled out by monks, preserved in coded grimoires, or passed down in whispered traditions among initiates. But why were these prayers so feared? Because they didn't just ask, they commanded. They assumed the speaker's divine authority, declaring truths like, "I am a vessel of the living light. By the breath of the Spirit, I decree healing. The kingdom is within me, and I awaken it now." Statements like these blurred the line between man and God, and that was a line the Church could not allow to be crossed. There exists a fundamental difference between ordinary prayer and the invocations the Vatican sought to erase. Most prayers are petitions, humble requests sent upward, hoping for divine mercy or intervention. But the forbidden prayers operated under a radically different principle. They were declarations of spiritual authority rather than pleas for it. These ancient invocations shared three dangerous characteristics that made them threatening to religious institutions. The language of divine identity. The most controversial prayers spoke from the perspective of one who had already realized their own sanctity. Phrases like, "I am the light," or "Through me flows the river of creation," weren't metaphors. They were direct claims of unity with the divine. This echoed Christ's statement, "I and the Father are one," John 10:30, a concept deemed acceptable only for Jesus himself by church authorities. The mechanics of instant manifestation. Unlike prayers that asked for future blessings, these were designed to create immediate effects. The prayer of the heart, practiced by Eastern Christian mystics, used breath and vibration to generate palpable divine energy. Some Coptic texts describe prayers that could part the waters of sickness or call down the fire of transformation upon speaking them. The bypassing of priestly intercession. Most alarming to church authorities was how these prayers required no confession, no absolution, no clerical approval. The Armenian Book of Shadows contains this suppressed line, "Why confess to men what God already sees? Speak truth to your own soul, and heaven hears." This struck at the very foundation of sacramental authority. The most infamous example was the Sanctus Ignis, holy fire prayer, used by medieval mystics to produce physical warmth during winter fasts. When peasants began learning it during the Little Ice Age, the Inquisition declared it a counterfeit miracle and burned those caught using it. Yet multiple accounts confirmed the prayer worked, raising body temperature through controlled breathing and sacred syllables. Beneath the surface of these forbidden invocations lies a forgotten science of sound, intention, and neuro-spiritual alchemy that modern research is only beginning to understand. The Vatican didn't merely ban these prayers because they threatened church authority. They suppressed them because they worked with terrifying efficiency. Recent studies in acoustic archaeology reveal that many of these prayers shared unique vibrational signatures. The so-called thunder prayer of the Bogomils, for instance, contained a specific sequence of guttural syllables, reconstructed as Ra, Ba, Sa, Ki, that, when chanted at 111 Hz, induced measurable changes in brainwave patterns. This frequency is now known to stimulate the prefrontal cortex and create states of heightened suggestibility, exactly the neurological conditions for what mystics called miraculous manifestations. Even more fascinating are the linguistic patterns found in these texts. The suppressed oratio directa prayers all shared tripartite sentence structures mirroring the body's vagus nerve responses, repetitive vowel sequences that stimulated the pineal gland, consonant clusters designed to resonate with the heart's electromagnetic field. Perhaps most controversial is what researchers call the Jesus Code, a linguistic pattern appearing in both canonical and banned prayers, but with one crucial difference. Where approved prayers say, "Thy will be done," the forbidden versions taught, "Our will in alignment with thy perfection." This subtle shift from passive acceptance to conscious co-creation represented a theological atomic bomb. The Church's greatest fear materialized during the 14th century when the Liber Infinitus, a compilation of these prayers, circulated among lay mystics. Records show entire villages achieving what appeared to be spontaneous healings and precognitive visions, all without priestly intervention. The subsequent papal bull, Contra Orationes Secretas, against secret prayers, didn't just ban the texts, it ordered the destruction of any mind that remembered them. Yet fragments survived in the unlikeliest places, encrypted in folk songs, woven into tapestry patterns, even hidden within approved liturgical texts as harmless filler words. Modern practitioners who've reconstructed these prayers report extraordinary effects, from accelerated healing to inexplicable synchronicities, suggesting the Vatican's fears may have been well-founded. Fifth practical application, awakening the forbidden prayers. Within the most shocking truth is this: the essence of these banned invocations was never truly lost. Like embers beneath ashes, they've smoldered in plain sight, encoded in folk traditions, hidden in plain Latin, whispered at the edges of orthodox practice. And now, we stand at the threshold of reclaiming them. The living prayer technique. Modern mystics have reconstructed a basic framework from surviving fragments: the breath before words. Ancient prayer manuals emphasize a specific breathing pattern, inhaling through the nose while mentally drawing a sacred symbol, often a cross or circle, holding for the space of a heartbeat, then exhaling the first syllable. This synchronizes autonomic nervous system responses with intentionality. The threefold anchor. Every effective forbidden prayer contained a declaration of divine connection. I am the vessel of infinite light. A command of transformation. Let this water become wine of healing. A seal of completion. As above, so below, this truth is manifest. The silent pulse. After speaking, practitioners would maintain absolute stillness for 7 seconds, the time needed for the body's bioelectric field to complete a full resonance cycle with the spoken words. A modern adaptation of the Sanctus Ignis. Try this simplified version of the banned warming prayer. Spiritus Ignis Sancti. Inhale through nose, visualize golden light. Intra in me et circum me. Hands over heart. Exhale slowly. Sicut flamma non comburit. Pause 7 seconds. Ita vivificat. Historical accounts suggest medieval mystics could raise their core body temperature by 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit using this technique, a literal survival skill during persecutions when they were denied fire. Modern practitioners report similar effects, particularly when practiced during cold exposure therapy. Why this still matters today? Beyond the miraculous claims, these prayers represent something far more dangerous to any system of control: the democratization of direct spiritual experience. When you can heal without intermediaries, transform circumstances through declaration, access divine states at will, you become ungovernable by any earthly power. This is why these techniques were suppressed, and why their rediscovery today coincides with humanity's greatest spiritual awakening. We stand now where countless mystics have stood before us, at the crossroads of divine intimacy and institutional resistance. The prayers the Vatican banned were never truly lost. They were only waiting for a time when enough souls would remember their own sacred authority, waiting for the moment when whispered truth could again become thunder. These forbidden invocations reveal an uncomfortable cosmic joke. The gates of heaven were never locked. The only chains were those we accepted around our understanding. When a peasant in 12th century France could heal the sick with words passed down from grandmother to granddaughter, or when a desert hermit could summon manna with syllables older than Moses, it proved the terrifying truth: the divine responds not to titles, but to truth. Perhaps this explains why fragments survived against all odds, why coded versions appeared in alchemical texts as recipes, why certain monastic orders still teach modified versions to initiates. The light of these prayers could not be extinguished because they were never merely words. They were living keys to our own divinity. As you step away from this revelation, ask yourself, what other truths have been hidden in plain sight? What sacred authority still sleeps within your own breath? The most dangerous prayer is not the one that moves mountains, but the one that awakens the mountain mover within, and that no institution can ever ban.